East Idaho Newsmakers is brought to you by the Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.
This is East Idaho Newsmakers with Nate Eaton.
Welcome to East Idaho Newsmakers. Today we are privileged to have Anne Rose Hart in the studio with us. She's going to teach us all how to be awesome, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So you are a local business woman, local
Yes.
business owner,
Yep.
who have, but really it's not just local, you're known all over the world.
Yes.
Let's kind of start at the beginning and give people an introduction as to what you do and,
Sure.
and how you have become known for being such an awesome person.
Oh, thank you. So right now, my primary business is personal coaching. And so I do one-on-one coaching with individuals who really want to step into their zone of genius. And what that means in psychological terms is self-actualization, doing the work that feels like play, expressing the best of who you are, and having the biggest impact where you know that your life is making a difference in the lives of others. So typically I'm coaching other people who have that inner desire to play in their zone of genius, you know. I really feel like each one of us is born with some innate gifts and talents that then either we develop or we don't develop, and we go through life and we build up our own experience, our skills, and each one of us is so unique in who we are and how we've lived. And when we really own our awesomeness, like I like to call it, there is a profound impact that we can make in the world just by sharing that. And so I work with clients all over the world that are wanting to do the work that feels like play, so that there is no difference between a day at work and a day out of the office because you love what you do that much.
There's so many people, I think everybody would say that's what they want to do.
Right?
They want every day to feel like play. The work doesn't
Exactly.
feel like play. How did you get started with this?
Right. So it came from, like most people, you hit rock bottom and then there's only one way to go, which is up. And so for me, 10 years ago, I was in a very different place where I wasn't clear on what my gifts were, what my genius was. I had done a number of different jobs. I have a master's degree in history. I was going back to school to be a physical therapist, really seeking out my sense of purpose. And when a dear friend of mine died suddenly in an accident 10 years ago, it really got my attention because he and I were skydiving buddies, and we used to jump out of airplanes together on weekends, and suddenly he was gone. And I realized, you know, my mortality, like each one of us could be gone in an instant. Like I could be hit by a bus tomorrow. What have I done with my life? You know, would it even matter? And it got me asking those big questions, like what is my life really about? And if I left, would the planet be any different? And it sparked inside of me when he died. I thought, I want my life to matter. And it just sparked something inside of me, this intense desire to find out, well, what can I do? And how can I make a difference? I'm just me. And so from there came this intense questioning every day. What am I here to do? What are my gifts? What is my purpose? I know that each one of us has a genius. What's mine, right? And what I discovered is when you start asking the big questions, the big answers start showing up. And little by little, I was guided on what I call the breadcrumb trail of clues that led me in this direction. So it's been this 10-year journey of just this burning question of wanting to know. And that's something that I share with all of my clients, is that when you have that burning desire in your heart to know, and you're just in your heart asking a question, life always brings you the answers. But most of the time, we get in a zone of complacency where we're not asking questions. And we're just like, my life's fine. And then you wonder, well, it's fine, but it's not awesome. Well, are you asking questions, you know? So it's come from there. About 7 years ago then, what showed up in my mailbox was a magazine article about laughing. And this completely changed my life because I was intensely asking, what is my gift? What is my genius? And my marriage was falling apart at the time, and it was getting urgent that I needed to figure this out because, you know, it was very likely that I'd be a single mom, and I knew I could not just get a job and put my son in daycare just to pay the bills and get insurance and go through that life where you just exist. Like that was the death for me. I knew I needed to have a job that had purpose and meaning and fulfillment.
You recently spoke at Harvard, I think. Were you nursing your child, and you thought, not what am I going to do now, but There's got to be more.
There's got to be more. Like, I love being a mom, but there's this intense desire inside me that there's something that I can be and do in the world that's really utilizing my fullest potential. And what is that? And that's when that magazine article showed up, and it talked about what happens in your body when you laugh. And it was interesting to me because I've always been interested in the mind-body connection and how we can change our emotions using our body. And this magazine got my attention because there was an article that talked about people who led laughter circles. It means you get people together in a circle to laugh. And I thought, no, that's just weird. That's bizarre. But at the same time, there was a little part of me that said, psst, you need to do that. And so I filed it for about a year. But as my questioning got more intense, I've got to figure this out now. My marriage is ending. That was the only thing that came to mind. That was, psst, you need to do that. It was like this little nudge from my intuition. So that's my first step, actually, of stepping out here in our community in Idaho Falls. I decided to start a laughter club. And I went all over town with my flyers, and I said, hey, I'm starting a laughter club. Would you like to join me? And everywhere I went, they said, you're not from around here, are you? I said, oh, this is going to be harder than I thought.
Because you had moved here from Minnesota.
I was living on the East Coast before I moved here, but I've lived all over. I grew up in Minnesota.
And you moved here not knowing a soul, right?
Right. It was way out of my comfort zone.
And you're going through a divorce, or had you been divorced at this point?
No, it was imminent. It was imminent. I actually filed for divorce and started my laughter club. I filed for divorce on a Monday and started my laughter club on a Tuesday.
That's one way to I guess, try to put it behind you, move forward.
Yeah, in fact, I could go on, but I got so sick from the stress of the divorce and of moving out. My son was 1, he was about to turn 2. And I was really intensely stressed and terrified. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing here, but I've got to follow this inner nudge that says, psst, you need to do this. And all of a sudden, I was a single mom without a plan, without a safety net. And I got so sick. I was nauseous. I couldn't stop throwing up. And I had gone all over town saying, hey, I'm starting a laughter club, and it's tomorrow. I can't not miss that, And so I didn't know how I would even walk. I was nauseous. I had a raging fever. I couldn't stop throwing up. And the next morning, I'm kind of green and woozy and like, how am I going to do this? So I dragged myself over there like, hey, welcome to Laughter Club, ha, ha, ha. And I got to practice my own medicine. And
how many people showed up?
That first one, there was 8 people.
8 people?
8 people, yep. And then it grew from there. But I discovered after that hour that laughter really is the best medicine, because after an hour of laughing, when I did not feel like it, I had just laughed. I was sick as a dog. There was a last thing I wanted to do was laugh. Ha, ha, ha. I laughed for an hour and I felt amazing. By the end of the hour, I had my energy back. I felt clear. I started to get an appetite back. The stress was gone. And I discovered, for those of us who really want to be sharing our gifts in a bigger way, we have to use our own tools and walk our walk. And that was day 1 for me of really discovering, hey, this stuff works. And so from there, it's just been this amazing journey.
So the laughter club, you don't just sit around and laugh. Do you tell jokes?
No, there's a practice called laughter yoga.
Oh, so it is really just laughing.
It's really just laughing and playing. Yeah, there's no jokes, no comedy.
No jokes, no movies, no.
Right. It's phenomenally bizarre and fascinating and powerful and amazing and life-changing. So,
have you had people come that are just grumpy, just sour people that say, this isn't going to work for me, and they end up laughing?
Right. So the thing about laughter and laughter clubs is it's very self-selecting. So people who are grumpy aren't going to come. It just works itself out. So the people who need it most are also the ones who don't come. I guess
that's like normal yoga. The people that don't want to do yoga aren't necessarily going to go.
They're not going to come. So for 5 years, I had a laughter club here in the community, and that was my practice, and it helped me laugh my way through very stressful times. And, it just gave me that inner resilience to learn how to master my own physiological state, my own emotional state. And what I've discovered from that phase where I was really doing a lot of laughing with people in a group setting is it's that power of choice that then can ripple into every other area of our life. Because if we could choose to laugh when things aren't funny, there's a lot of other things that we can choose, even when we don't feel like it. We can choose to do the right thing. We can choose to be compassionate, even when we're feeling, resentful. We can choose to master our physiological state, and we actually have a lot more choice available to us. And that was one of the biggest gifts that I received from that chapter.
So you start this laughter club. You're recently divorced. You have a young child. You said you had a master's in history, but you were studying to be a...
I had gone back to school to be a physical therapist.
And did you decide to pursue that route?
No, I let that go. When I was pregnant with my son, it was such a pivotal moment, because I had thought that physical therapy was my way of helping people, and I loved the physical body, and I could get a job that would be financially stable and help people. And then when I got pregnant with my son, I realized I don't want to be in a doctorate program with a newborn. This is a 70-hour-a-week program, and I want to be a mom like I want to be a mom. So it was this inner conflict of who do I want to be. So I decided to shelve that, and I deferred my seat in the program for a year. And during that year, I stayed home and I was nursing my son, and I was asking every day, like, okay, if it's not physical therapy, what? Or do I go back? Just that questioning again. And in that year, I realized, no, there's something more. There's something beyond the physical nature of rehabilitation that really lights me up. Like, that's actually too limiting. It was a wonderful step, but I'm more interested in the matters of the soul, the intangible, and who are you here to be? And let's do physical therapy and energetic therapy and emotional therapy on that, so you can really show up as your fullest self in the world. So that year that I took off from school was a big transition year for me, where I stepped out of physical therapy and into this vast unknown. I didn't really know about the field of personal development. I didn't know it existed, so I didn't know what I was getting into, but I just knew that something more that was unnameable was the thing that I needed to follow.
There's so many people that feel like there's something more, but we just go through the routine that everybody else does,
Right.
and we're not happy.
Right.
And so it's one thing to think and know that. It's another thing to literally change your life
Yes.
in so many drastic ways. How does the average person out there that's, stuck right now thinking, I want to do that, I just don't have the courage? I mean, what do they do? What should you do?
Yeah, it's so powerful. For one thing, we need to have role models and be able to see other people who have broken out of the mold, so to speak, because typically our normal society and our peers aren't taking those actions and even having those conversations. So number one, seeing somebody else plants a seed in the mind that something else is possible. So that's an important piece. The other piece is developing that belief in yourself. It sounds trite almost, but it's really looking back at your own life, because no matter where you are in your life, there are things that you have done that took courage. There's no question. There's not anybody who could say, I don't have courage. Bull. I'm going to call you on that, because if you look back, if all the way back to your childhood, there's pivotal moments where you did something that took courage, and you're not really acknowledging that, giving yourself credit. So that's the first place I would start for people to say, look back at your own life and those bold things that you have done that now you're conveniently forgetting. We get amnesia in this process. And give yourself credit, because you've done it before. It exists within you. And even though it's unknown and unfamiliar, that's where everything awesome lives, is the unknown. If it were something we'd already done, it wouldn't be awesome, because we'd be like, oh yeah, been there, done that, right? So we have to develop an entirely new relationship with uncertainty and with the unknown, which means building our muscles of trust and faith and belief in ourselves, and trusting the invisible, which is not a conversation that people are having. Nobody talks about this, And so to surround yourself with peers, friends, mentors, support network, role models of people who are talking about it. And there's probably a million bazillion videos on YouTube in the field of personal development on these topics. It's there, but we got to shift your focus to look for it. So that's what I would be. Give yourself credit for who you are, what you've already lived, and give yourself permission to just dare to go for it. Even if you don't know what it is. Like, every step for me has started with this, I don't even know what's next, but there's this feeling, and learning to live kind of by feel. Like, well, this feels expansive and lighter and like nourishing for me, and this feels That's your compass. And instead of operating from our cognitive mind and our logic that says, well, that's not rational, it doesn't make sense, that's the mind's job, is to keep us safe. And we want safety, but at the expense of our awesomeness is what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned role models. When we come back from the break, you brought someone, I guess, that could be a role model.
Yes, it's indeed.
Professor Marion
Happy Pants.
Marion Happy Pants is here in the studio.
At the Bank of Commerce, we understand the hard work, determination, and sacrifice it takes to run a successful business. That's why we're here every step of the way to help make your dreams come true. The Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.
Welcome back to East Idaho Newsmakers. Before the break, we were with Anne Rose Hart. We're back, and we are now with Professor Marion Happy Pants. Professor, thanks for being in here.
Thank you so much for accommodating my presence. I so appreciate it.
Now, how do you know Anne Rose Hart?
Well, to be quite honest, I'm her alter ego. We don't talk about that much, but we go way back.
Yes.
We go way back.
Now tell me what you do.
Well, my colleague, Ms. Hart, has a business where she is coaching individuals and doing training and retreats. And just between you and I, I'm the brains of the operation. So she's out playing with people and helping people with their emotional intelligence. And I handle the cognitive processing, logical, linear aspects of the business, as well as creating the structures for her to play in.
Wow. So what have you learned doing this?
Well, first of all, for those of us that have very highly developed left brains and cognitive processing capacity, you can see mine is so developed that it makes my hair curl. It's very difficult for us to access our emotions sometimes, and it's very difficult for us to play. And so this is why I delegate that to her. So that I can stay focused. It's very important for me to stay focused. So I don't actually play much with her, but I'm happy behind the scenes.
You're happy behind the scenes. So she goes out and teaches people how to play.
Yes, and to create the work that feels like play. So there's many elements of that. There's the physiological playfulness, there's the playful mindset, and there's the lifestyle choices in which your life now looks like a game.
So when she speaks, you make appearances often with her.
Yes, absolutely.
And do you know how the idea came about for her to invite you to come along?
Yes, about 2 years ago, she was shooting some videos for some clients for a program she was developing, and realized that there's a lot that in the science of joy, in the science of freedom, that can be mapped out intellectually, very analytically. And suddenly, in a moment of inspiration, she called me in, and we had a whiteboard in which we created formulas that were completely facetious, of course, but the formulas for creating the ROI on joy, the formulaic strategies for success, because so many people that she was working with were really struggling with how to let go of the analysis and the mental processing to relax enough to just enjoy their life. So she brought me in as a bridge to let people know that it is possible to have both a high level of intellect and intelligence and to relax and enjoy your life.
So what is the ROI on joy?
That is such a good question. Only somebody with a highly developed processing capacity would ask that. So the ROI on joy is that which is beyond words. It is priceless. To look back at your life, to feel that you have lived fully, to given the best of who you are, to have shared what's in your heart, to build relationships, to have gone full throttle into being the best you. Can you even quantify that? No, it is a question that is beyond the capacity of the mind. So this is where we must trust that which is beyond the mind to receive the benefits of that which is also beyond the mind.
So then the question is, how do you get to that joy so that you can experience the ROI?
Yes, you must make a decision that you want it, first of all. Most people don't even bring it into their awareness as a possibility. They just go through the motions of everyday life without even bringing it in as a possibility. So they're not asking for it. So first you've got to decide, I want that something more. I must want that, because desire is what drives the train, so to speak. So the first step then is desire. And where most people are experiencing discord in their experience is when they have suppressed desires. And for many people, for most people in fact, this is the new normal, that we just walk around with suppressed desires, and it comes out in unhealthy ways: conflict in our relationships, frustration, stress, disease, chronic illness, because we're suppressing some part of ourselves. So the first thing is to get really clear on, what do you want? What do you want from your life? And can you give yourself permission to do it, to be that, to develop the skills that you need to live that? Desire is first.
And then you just work from there.
You work from there. Once you have opened the lid of the pressure cooker, so to speak, to unleash your desire will guide you. You've got to nurture it like a garden. You must water it with fertilizer and sunshine. And that fertilizer and sunshine are your daily habits, your daily choices. Are you paying attention to that baby desire every day to say, what would it take for me to live this? What would it take for me to receive that? Whether it's career fulfillment or true soulmate love or financial abundance, there is always a path that exists. But you've got to take off your blinders and every day ask, what are the choices I could make today that would move me in that direction? And there is desire, and then there are the skills. And often we have a lot of skills that we need to learn along the way, and that is where people bump into their resistance of, well, I can't afford that training, or I don't want to invest in the mentoring I need, or I don't believe I could do that, or I don't have enough time is the number one problem people say right now. I just don't have time, which again is an excuse. It seems like you don't have time, but you always have time for the things that are really important to you. Always. So it's a matter of prioritization, and that comes back to honoring your desire every day.
Is there anything you want the public to know before Ms. Hart comes back?
Yes. Beyond your brilliant mind, your mind becomes a servant of your heart, so to speak. And so if you can allow yourself to play in the space of just being in nature every day, slowing down to listen to what is underneath the mental chatter so you can hear what's in your heart, it will go a long ways toward helping you grow into your awesomeness. So slow down, listen, be willing to be still, and step out of the distractions and the busyness. Take a chunk of time consistently every day just to listen.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Miss Happy Pants. We do have a few more questions for Miss Hart before we wrap up. All righty, well, we're back with Miss Hart. A few more things before we go today. There's going to be people watching that say, yeah, I want all of that. I'm going to go on and enroll with you or sign up for coaching. Mm-hmm. What's one of the first things that you tell people? I mean, you've kind of gone through a few things that come to you that are just miserable but that want that change.
Yeah, so there's a couple symptoms that I typically see. I call this unfulfilled potential syndrome. And with this, there's either some conflict happening in often relationships, especially in your marriage or your partnership, where there's irritability with your family or just pressure. And so that's a sign that there's something that's wanting to emerge for you, but you got to be open to look. Another time that people are ready to come and have a conversation with me is if they know actually what they really want to be doing with the next phase of their career. They have a sense, but it feels so big, it feels so impossible, like where do I even start? That's another time when we can just dive in and map out the action plan, and it emerges very powerfully. Also, when there's tension, I actually work with teams as well, high-performing teams, to help teams get into alignment with what makes them awesome. And so if there's dysfunction in a team, personnel issues, just interpersonal conflict. Part of that is communication, but part of it really needs to be addressing what is your awesomeness alignment, is what I like to call it. So team areas, building high performance teams is another way that I work with people. So there's a few other symptoms too, where somebody is maybe having a health crisis. It's actually not always just about the physical health. There's metaphors that we can learn by listening to the body that give you a clue into what your stress-related illness is really about, where you've been holding back or suppressing some part of you that's really an authentic part of who you are. So relationships, health, just that sense of something more and purpose, believing that there's something that's just too impossible, it's too big. There's just so many symptoms that people take for granted as normal, that you just kind of settle for this complacency and this is as good as it gets. And the biggest line that I often hear is this inner feeling like, well, I should just be grateful for what I have. Because look at my life, it's not bad. I have a successful job, my family's healthy. Like, there's nothing really wrong, but there's nothing really awesome either. And so people get caught in that, well, shouldn't I just be grateful for what I have? And why don't I feel grateful? Well, it's not that, it's because there's a whole next chapter for you that is ready to bring your attention to if you're willing.
So what's next for you?
Oh boy. So this fall, I'm launching my Awesomeness Alignment Program, which is going to be the first, well, not the first, but the next round of taking the work that I do with private clients and putting it in a program that anybody can access for a lower investment and to do it at their own pace, so that we don't, for somebody who doesn't want the private coaching sessions, they can do it at their own at their own convenience. So the Awesomeness Alignment Program is coming out. I've got a mastermind that I run there where we have a core group of people that are all building their lifestyle businesses, so to speak, we're traveling the world and meeting in beautiful places in Switzerland and in Maui, and really anchoring in those gifts and strategies in a beautiful place. A lot more speaking. I've been doing actually a lot of speaking, but there's a few keynotes coming up that I'm excited about. And at some point I will start writing and start sharing some of this stuff in a book form, and I feel like that's coming in the next year, but one thing at a time, one thing at a time.
Well, we appreciate you stopping in today and helping us be reminded to laugh and to be awesome. And there's a lot of misery out there. There's a lot of unhappiness. And we hope to see what's next for you, and we appreciate you coming in. Again, this has been Anne Rose Hart, probably the most awesome lady in East Idaho. And thanks for watching East Idaho Newsmakers. We'll see you next week.
East Idaho Newsmakers is brought to you by the Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.